Picture yourself locked in your room. Your heart's pounding so fast it feels like it's going to burst right out of your chest. Your mind spiraling into a void of fear and despair. During the pandemic, this was my reality every single day. I dealt with severe anxiety, depression, and panic attacks were so intense I literally couldn't step outside my own room. Good morning, everyone. My name is Riley, and today I'd like to provide a briefing on strategies on managing anxiety, and drawn from my own personal experience, drawn from psychological theories and research that I've conducted. I'll cover what anxiety is, the concept of facing fears as a key approach, and the roles of medication therapy, and how lifestyle factors like exercise and diets can play a huge part in hopefully overcoming this disease, or at least managing it to a level that you have a good quality of life. Again, this is based off of my own experience, my familiarity with it, and supported by recent studies that I've researched. So let's start off with let's define what anxiety is, and this is a huge spectrum of what anxiety is. You can be anxious about seeing a coworker that you don't get along with, or you can get anxious about having to pay bills. There's a lot of things, but for me during this time, my anxiety was just constant. I couldn't even step outside my room, and I just had this just a sphere of anxiety around me constantly. So again, it's a huge spectrum. It can cover a lot of things, but basically it's defined as excessive worry, fear, and it commonly has physical symptoms such as a rapid heartbeat, restlessness, and millions of people worldwide are affected by this. Chances are you or someone has dealt with it. Specifically, I'm talking about chronic anxiety. Because I think anxiety is kind of just a common feeling or emotion that people experience. So just going forward, I'm kind of referring to the chronic anxiety. One established theory in psychology emphasizes that effectively dealing with anxiety involves confronting fears directly, so stepping up to the plate approach. This is rooted in exposure therapy, where individuals gradually face anxiety-provoking situations or thoughts in a controlled way to reduce, the emotional impact of the anxiety over time. Again, stepping up to the plate, facing your fears. This is kind of what this theory revolves around. And this is backed by a 2024 article, I believe by Rubenstein was the name, and the paper American Psychologist. It's a tough word. But basically, exposure therapy works by, they're going to activate fear responses, and then, allowing the individual to, develop like a new learning curve to that, to hopefully break them out of that cycle of avoidance and dealing with it directly. So someone with social anxiety, someone gets anxious about, being around in public, going to parties, that kind of things. You start slow. Maybe this is just you, and my own experience. My therapist told me to go stand in line at a fast food restaurant until I didn't feel nervous anymore. It's a true story. So things like that, just dealing with it directly, stepping up to the plate, handling it, and hopefully over time your brain can learn, you're safe. Nothing happened to me. I'm good. Next, and then the next time you experience that situation, you're not going to be your brain's not going to have that immediate anxiety response. So that kind of wraps up, exposure therapy. So next, medication therapy. These are also foundational tools, and I don't mean to demonize these two. These two, I think that they help a lot of people. But from my own experience, I needed the exposure therapy. I needed to deal with my anxiety directly. But these things help millions of people, and people should definitely give these a try. Medications, antidepressants, These can help regulate brain chemistry that can possibly alleviate symptoms. These do come with side effects. And then therapies like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, these teach skills kind of to try to reframe your brain from negative thoughts, try to make it positive. Sometimes these can provide initial relief. From my experience, after I had seen the therapist, I might feel good that evening or maybe going to the next day, but then you're dealing with the same issues, from my experience. I just think that, placing the responsibility on the person dealing with it is, it's how I cope with it. And finally, let's get into lifestyle adjustments. Exercise and nutrition. These are the things that really help me the most. Because, and I think this just goes for anybody. If you had a tough day at work or school, or you got stuff going on in your life, going for a run, going for a lift, it does wonders for your mental. I mean, I don't know how many times I've just been like, I don't know how I'm gonna get to this day, and then I'm like, but I know I'm gonna hit the gym. I know I'm gonna go work out for a little bit, and an hour, 2 hours later, you're feeling great. It gets positive chemicals flowing through your brain, and you feel great. Studies have proven that it reduces anxiety. So, regular physical activity like walking or yoga, these, again, lower stress hormones, boost endorphins, and these contribute to better mood regulation. Similarly, consuming natural, unprocessed foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, these can also help reduce anxiety. Getting on a all natural diet, not eating stuff with preservatives, processed stuff, stuff that your body's not used to, that it doesn't know how to deal with. Sometimes your brain doesn't know what to do with it, and it interprets it as like an anxiety chemical. And this was found in a 2024 study by Basso, and they found that diets high in like processed foods are associated with higher anxiety levels. So in this study, they try to tie it into the gut microbiome. I know there's like a Netflix documentary that I saw a couple years ago, maybe last year, that kind of got into this. It's still kind of like a new study field for science, but it's definitely interesting when you look into it. So basically, managing anxiety, it involves understanding its nature, facing fears through approaches like exposure therapy, and recognizing the supportive yet limited role of medication and therapy, and incorporating exercise and healthy eating. Basically, my advice, step up to the plate, deal with it directly, and hopefully you can get some great results out of it and mitigate your anxiety levels. So thank you for listening.